ask for approval of the agenda, which has 2 unfinished business items and 1 new business item in the closed session. Are there any changes, modifications, deletions, corrections? It was emailed.
It was emailed.
Sorry.
Share.
We'll
Yeah, make a copy.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda as,
Motion to approve is submitted.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I have one suggestion, and it is a suggestion, is that as of now, we are not scheduled for any action subsequent to the closed session. I think that's probably a reasonable expectation, but keep in mind, I don't believe we can take action afterwards unless we put it on the agenda. So I would leave it to someone to make a friendly amendment to put action subsequent to the public comment, I think subsequent to the closed session, if that's something that
I would make a motion, following 8, make it 8A if you want, or just the other numbers, for discussion / action as required, following closed session.
all right. And let's make that a friendly amendment. Chief, who raised the motion?
I did.
Craig made the original motion. and
Oh, okay,
second.
we can, that's, you amended it. Is there still a second?
Second.
Still a second, okay. All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as modified, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is agreed to, thank you. All right, unfinished business, dispatch operations evaluation. I put this on here for, I think we can deal with this quickly. There are 2 paths we can take here. One is, we as a board, and this was the sense I got from our meeting last time, will need to work this thing through just to make the judgment about which direction we want to go. And the first step in that was to have a meeting here with Chelsea Dispatch. I didn't get a lot of response in my query to set that up, and I haven't got a lot of response in my query to set up a meeting with HVA. Kurt, you indicated that you're comfortable with whatever direction, so that's perfectly fine. Now, we either need to go forward with those meetings, or at least the meeting with HVA. I met with with Chief Toth separately a couple of times now, or an alternative. And Chief, let us know what your thoughts are. We can go ahead with the current contract and re-sign that for another year and kick this down the road.
With Chelsea?
With Chelsea, right. Because the issue, just to sum up, the city, or Chief Toth has an issue because by having HVA as a dispatcher, puts an extra step in the 911 process. So that's not desirable, and we need to, as a board, we would need to evaluate the impact of that on the other benefits to be associated with this. So
I would just state that in my 25 years with the city, their dispatch system has been outstanding. I don't really understand why we would want to change from that, unless there's things that have transpired since I've retired that I don't know about. But
let's let Tom go. 1 minute, Chief. Go ahead, Tom.
I think the big thing that's changed since I was on the fire department and you were working for the city is that it used to be very local. 2 things. The fire department was very local. In other words, we pretty much supplied all our own manpower, occasionally call for mutual aid. It's different now, just about every fire call or every big incident, you have to call for mutual aid, which brings in other departments that aren't electronically tied to our dispatch. The other thing that's changed with the 911 system is that your phone calls, all your cell calls, whether they're in the city or out, go to HVA.
No, they go to Metro Dispatch.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
HVA.
No, it's not. It's a different, they then transfer it to HVA.
Okay. But when you had landlines, the city's calls came here. So now the number of calls that actually originate in this dispatch are very few. So the adding of another step is becoming more and more of a moot point. I mean, who has, you know, house phones anymore? There's always one.
And
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
But
Okay,
they,
sorry, go.
so the big difference I see is in the technology that HVA dispatch has to integrate our department with other departments is superior to what we have here in-house.
And I would have to agree with that, and that's why I don't think that we should go down another year. The technology aspect, the mutual aid aspect, and, you know, what we're looking at doing with the Lima Township Station is really, we're going to be doing that on a regular basis, because we're looking at, you know, 2 departments covering, possibly 3 departments covering part of our area and we covering part of theirs. I.e., with Linden Township, we would be responding from here, and Dexter Township would be responding from the station on Dexter, on the Dexter Township Station. That way, we're not bringing the Lima Township Station in and have to go all the way up to Linden Township unless it's a structure fire. If it's a structure fire, everybody goes. But what we're trying to do is go to a closest station response to reduce response times for our area in particular is the one that's probably going to benefit the most by being able to get closer stations to some of our more remote areas like Linden Township. We're on a different frequency. We operate on a different frequency than Dexter and Scioto are right now. We're on our own frequency, and they use the county frequency. So it's going to be extremely difficult with our mutual aid response to be able to coordinate those from different, going to the same incident and being on different radio frequencies or changing over radio frequencies. So, and then the technology is so much better. Plus we have a dedicated dispatcher who is going to be there and not have to take other calls.
What do you mean, dedicated dispatcher?
They'll have a dispatcher that's, when we go out, that there's a fire dispatcher, and that's what they do.
They're
It's
dedicated.
just dedicated,
One individual handling CAFA.
handling fire incidents. They
So they're not, kind of not dedicated.
they're dedicated to the fire side, so
What
they're not
should-
handling other calls. And again, I mean, the technology, the coordination of efforts, all of those things are much better going with HVA than they are staying. And we're not
What,
talking about,
Of the contract here, you have 11 services here that you want the city to provide. Which of these are related to, aside from the technology issue, which Chief Toth assures me that they are comfortable with, which of these relate to the substation, which is kind of the only thing that's changing right now? I mean, it's at least the immediate, the major thing that's changing.
well, a lot of it is with the Mavis mutual aid system. That again goes with coordinating with radio frequencies.
They say they're capable of doing that.
they're capable of doing it.
They say
But-
they will meet that requirement.
When all the other agencies are in one central dispatch center, it is much easier to coordinate the county efforts into one dispatch center than it is for us to be off on our own.
So you're not disputing the fact that they say they can meet that requirement?
They say they can meet it, I'm not gonna dispute, and that's why we put the specifics in. If they say that they can do it, and that's what the board chooses to go with, I think, my recommendation is we go with HVA, and I think I speak for the rest of those sitting out here. In fact, one of them is a part-time dispatcher for Chelsea, so,
Trying to establish the reasons behind this, because it is a cost and a benefit. The cost is a delay of some seconds in response. I mean, that's indisputable. Now, you can argue that that's not important.
it's minimal, yes. It's,
But it is
they're
a
talking
transfer.
35 seconds.
Yes, but you're also it's an extra transfer for a 911 call. I mean, in addition to the time.
But with a cell phone, even if it's in the city,
I
it's
understand
going
cell
there, and
phones-
it's gotta come back.
Cell phones go to Metro Dispatch, okay?
Right.
Tom is absolutely right. I don't know that what I was told is the majority of the calls are cell phones. But landlines, I don't have the numbers. Do you have the numbers?
No.
Okay, but I think it's majority, minority, not the overwhelming preponderance. But I want to make sure the reasons that we do this are substantive enough to defend to the city, the people that I report to, when they want to know why they don't get the Chelsea Dispatch anymore. And you've identified item 10, was it? Are there any other of these items that relate to the substation that Chelsea can't do?
I don't think they can do the written run. I don't
That
believe
is
they can
correct.
do, I don't think they can do the,
How important is written run? Do we do that now?
no.
Well,
It would
if
be
we
improved.
don't do it now, how important can it be?
It's quite important, especially if you got the.
Okay, all right, look, we're trying, this is fact finding here, you guys may disagree, all right, go ahead. We'll clear the courtroom. Let me rephrase my question. My understanding is, it's again, I'm not an outsider, I'm not an expert in any of this, as has been pointed out. But this is kind of not we're talking about technology, not the way, my understanding is that going forward, these notifications will be transmitted electronically to cell phones, so that information is contained on the cell phone without having to pull a paper tab off. Is that not correct?
We have that ability now.
Isn't that
That's
superior?
going to individuals' personal cell phones. But the guys working in the station,
Right.
they get a call, they can take, and here's a piece of paper, it's got the run information, what it is, location, incident type, what it is, and they take that with them.
And that's what they currently do.
No, that's not what they currently do.
Well, if it's, okay, I'll make the statement again. If it's critical to have that, why have we not implemented it so far?
Because Chelsea doesn't
Because Chelsea
have
can't.
that ability to do that.
Okay,
And then the other technology thing is, we have people coming in to the station for station coverage and like that, and either have to make phone contact or talk, get on the radio and speak to the incident commander or whoever, as opposed to a screen, a standalone screen that you can monitor, you can see what's going on, where they're at. You've got a whole, it's the activities of the incident, those kinds of things are right there for those individuals that come in, so.
okay, I don't quite understand that, but that's my problem. All right, I hadn't intended for this to be an extensive discussion because it's really a fork in the road. And maybe the way to do this is to, and I will make the motion, and I understand this this is the board's decision to go one or two paths, and I'm comfortable with either path, but I will make the motion that is the one I currently prefer, and I understand if the board doesn't go that direction, but at least they'll tell us where we are. Now, the motion would be to accept or renew the current Chelsea Dispatch contract for an additional year. And I would, if we want to change that term, that's fine. If we want to make it 6 months, whatever. But let's say 1 year, and with the implication, this is not part of the motion, but the implication that we will work this issue to come to a decision during that time. So, having said that, is there a second?
Could I make a comment? Wait for a second.
If you don't make, no, actually, I don't think you can. If the motion, if there's no second, the motion fails. There is no second, okay? So, indicate that the motion failed for lack of a second. Now, the board has to tell me what it wants to do to resolve this issue.
I would like, after hearing Chief's information, I believe it would be wise for us, or at least a committee of us, to go down and tour HVA's facility. There's a lot of this, obviously, that I do not understand at this point in the game. Things have obviously changed a whole lot in the last 25 years. I would request if we could perhaps table this and do a tour of the facility down there, along with a little more information to be provided, and make a more informed decision.
There's no motion on the table to table. Would you
I can
volunteer?
transfer that into a motion if you would like.
Well, I don't think we need a motion to set up a tour, but I tried that, didn't work. Kurt responded, and I didn't get any responses before. That's why the meeting wasn't set up. That was the plan last time. Frankly, I think it's incumbent on the remaining members of this board to organize that tour, which I will be glad to attend myself. But I would leave to Craig if he would like to volunteer to set that up, or I think Kurt is, by his position, is not one that needs to be burdened with that, but it's up to you guys. If you want more information, let's go forward with it. So what's the pleasure? I'm just trying to do what the board wants to do here.
At the moment, I'm comfortable with the information I'm receiving from the chief and from Tom, that technology has changed sufficiently to where that might actually be a better move. But
Do you, if I could interrupt for a question, are you prepared to make a motion to sign a contract with the new provisions?
I could do that.
I mean, it's, okay, do you want to do, it's basically this kind of, it's marked up, but it's, you know, the revised agreement with, it's got 11 individual requirements in it versus like 5 or 6 before, so I'll leave it to you if you want to make that motion.
Pull this out of my hand, aren't you?
No, just make a motion to revise.
I would,
We understand what it is.
I would make a motion to enter into a contract with HVA.
Chelsea, yes, that's right.
That is correct?
Well,
Technically
Chief,
emergent
is-
health partners.
I'm sorry?
They're technically emergent health partners now, if that's what you were, I don't know if that's what the stumble was. The name, they're not technically HVA. As a company, they're now called emergent health partners. We know them as HVA, but
Okay,
I was just throwing that out there.
Emerging?
emergent.
emergent health partners. For dispatch services for CAFA.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. The flow chart we had listed network services or something. is that the, we, you know, we say I think you said HVA, and then you said, no, it's not HVA, it's network cert.
So you're talking about those activity lists?
The
Yeah.
central dispatch.
Yeah, it's
Metro
actually,
dispatch.
Metro Dispatch, thank you. So, this is not a contract with Metro Dispatch.
No, it's not, Metro dispatch is.
Okay,
No.
Metro Dispatch is 911,
Yes,
that's, and they're police.
and they're funded by my phone bill every
Yes.
month. I see 911
Yes.
charges. Okay, so then they take the call and they hand it over to HVA,
Or whoever.
they,
Yeah.
or, okay, they dispatch it, whether it's police.
They give it
fire,
to,
HVA.
most, I think they typically just go to HVA and then HVA disperses them because HVA is essential.
no, if it's within the city of Chelsea, it goes to Chelsea dispatch.
Yeah, if it's a landline, yes.
It'll come
No,
back
if
to-
it goes to, if it's a cell phone, it goes to Metro dispatch, who then transfers it to Chelsea. Correct?
For fire or for police?
For everything.
For both.
Is that gonna
Correct or
change?
not?
Yes, that would change. That's the problem, because it then go to
Okay,
HVA, and then HVA would go to, although they're supposed to filter it, this is the problem I have, they're supposed to filter it, if it is a police call, then it goes to Chelsea. If it's not a police call, it goes to HVA. Well, that's done in 30 seconds, okay, maybe sometimes, but if you're, I don't know, I mean, you get panicky people calling, don't know, you know, I know our dispatchers are, you know, all of them, this is not a reflection on any of the dispatcher performance, but it's not exactly an easy question all the time, so.
So, yesterday, driving by the big boy, I saw the CAFA fire truck and an HVA ambulance.
Correct.
So, it seems like the fire department is being dispatched to the same things that ambulances are.
Correct.
That is another another issue that we probably need to discuss at some time. That is our policy,
Okay, and the advantage is we get there quicker,
sometimes.
potentially, sometimes. Okay, that's all I have for additional discussion.
Okay, Tom?
What, one problem that we as fire authority have with the whole system is that a majority of these calls are police calls. And they're for police services. And so the system is gonna be skewed towards police department. If a cell phone call goes to Metro Dispatch, they have to screen that as to whether to give it to police or fire. That's, regardless of who your dispatch is, you're gonna have that.
That question, if it's within the geographical area of the city of Chelsea, they don't have to screen it because it all comes here, right?
If it's a landline,
If it's a landline, it never goes to Metro dispatch.
right.
Right.
But,
If it's a landline,
So-
it will come here.
so they're screening the cell phone calls from the city of Chelsea as to police, fire, medical emergency.
Correct.
And additionally, like EMS calls that you brought up, HVA, all the fire departments in Washington County are what's considered a category response system. It's based on types of incidents, whether the fire department goes or not. So even with Chelsea, the city of Chelsea, it goes to HVA to assess whether it's a fire department response or not. So, you know, there are still times that even Chelsea Dispatch contacts HVA so that they can categorize the incident and then let our dispatchers know whether we're gonna respond to the call or not. Because we don't respond to every single call in the city or anyplace else. So, and there's varying levels of that throughout the county, and that's, you know, they have that all loaded into their dispatch system, their CAD system.
Where are we on this?
Is additional discussion, are they charging for this HVA?
Yes.
They get paid by,
Well, if a cell phone call comes in and it goes to Metro, and they dispatch it to HVA, why would we?
The only ones that receive funding from the PSAPs are law enforcement. The PSAPs are all set up that's the way the system was designed. Because believe me, if others could have found a way of collecting PSAP money for dispatching, there would be other dispatch centers out there. But in the state of Michigan, It's typically the police departments that receive the funding for PSAPs, because then the calls go into the police department, and then they disperse them to the other agencies. So they're the only ones that are receiving any kind of funding.
Okay, so cell phone,
But HVA is not a primary PSAP.
No, they're not
They've
primary
gotta-
PSAP.
They
Right.
never get their information directly, they always get transferred somewhere else. from a
Right,
Primary PSAP.
right.
so just to recap this, if a cell phone call is made, it goes to Metro Services. They're funded by 911 on your phone bill.
Yes.
They dispatch it to HVA
Yes.
because it's potentially police or fire and not a ambulance issue, I assume. So they hand it back to somebody,
Correct.
and we would
It's not
be paying for that. CAFA would be paying for that.
We would be paying for HVA's services to dispatch.
If it's a
Yes.
landline that comes into the city of Chelsea,
Yes.
then Metro never sees it.
Correct.
The police department is still gonna dispatch it,
Correct.
and now the police department's not gonna get paid for that.
Correct.
Well,
They'll still
the
receive
plan
the PSAP
is-
money.
Is that, as I understand it, the plan is to have those calls go to Metro Dispatch, which, because it is the only primary, other than, Chelsea's a primary PSAP, Metro Dispatch is a primary PSAP.
Right.
It's gotta go to one of those places, that's where the 911 calls go.
Correct.
So in the proposed plan, it goes to Metro Dispatch and then goes to HVA. Unless it's a police call, then it goes to Chelsea, right?
Correct. And for the townships, that's what's being done now. Everything in the townships goes into,
So why can't Metro dispatch CAFA directly and not have to pay HVA to dispatch CAFA?
I don't have any idea about.
Very,
All I can tell you is, and it goes back a long time, and there was
oh no,
a,
I'm good with that answer, so that's all the discussion. I have.
HVA is a much larger organization than Metro. I think Metro
H-
Dispatch has got like 19 people on its staff.
HVA is,
hundreds of people.
there's a there's a central dispatch authority that was established in Washington County back in the 90s, which I believe is still in effect. HVA was designated as the central dispatch agency for Washington County Fire Departments. And that's how it ended up at HVA.
All right, let's review. Where you have a motion and it's been seconded, is there any additional, any
Okay.
additional discussion?
Could I make just one comment, please? I did receive information the other day that as of, and I can't remember the month, but as of 2017, landlines will no longer be maintained.
Is that right?
Mhm.
No kidding.
Mhm.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, is this nationwide or what?
Yes,
I mean, I'd like to see that.
I believe it was certainly state of Michigan. Certainly state of Michigan. Locally, you will
That
no
makes no
longer see.
sense. I mean, a lot of the long haul, even internet communications are landlines.
Internet would be different, but a landline to home, it stated that they were no longer going to maintain
Mm,
after
companies don't want to.
2017.
Well, why are they updating it to fiber optic then?
I don't know.
Can't answer that.
Well, I'd like to see that.
I didn't write it, I just read it.
Right, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so, Madam Secretary, would you please read the motion again before?
Motion to enter into a contract with Emergent Health Partners for dispatch services for CAFA.
All right, so I'll call,
Craig made the motion, Tom seconded.
all right, thank you. So I'll call the question, all those in favor of, in favor of the motion as stated, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, no. The motion is agreed to. Thank you. So I voted no.
I know.
All right, thank you. A little longer than we thought, but it's time. Vice Chairman Meyer, would you please take us through the main station structure status? We stand on that.
Yes, please. But I don't, does everybody else have
Everybody
one
else have one?
or no?
I have that, so.
We received, had a meeting with two gentlemen from Kent Companies, who have done worked for the city, previously as to
I got it.
repair of the, Station 1. This would be installing 15 helical piles around the exterior of the structure, and doing, call it grouting, call it mud jacking, whatever you would, to fill the voids underneath the concrete slabs inside the station. We did have an outfit come in and TV the storm line underneath the structure there. It seems to be intact. There's one offset joint, but other than that, there's no serious deficiencies we could detect. As the weather improves a little bit, we are going to diet and try and figure out precisely where the water does go from there. But all that being said, they would come in, they would excavate down to the bottom of the footings on the exterior of the building, northwest and north side of the building, install these helical piles. One thing that was not included in their proposal was sand or granular fill to backfill with. Who knows what's there, so I would consider, adding a little money to their price. Would that be necessary? Jacking up the concrete as necessary, cleaning, caulking all of the joints in the floor so that we would not be putting additional moisture back down in there. And I rounded up. I would say we would be safe at a total price for all of their work not to exceed $40,000. I've worked with this company before. They're very reputable. They've done good work within the city on several other projects. I leave it to the board's discretion if you would like to get additional bids on this or not. But that's where we stand on it. They were very, very prompt in getting us a proposal, well, the day after we met with them. And you'll see two proposals here, one being for the helical piles and then the other for the void fill and the caulking. So you do have to combine the two of those. And I figured it more than safe just to round up. If we want to put sand back around the building, something tells me that there's not in there now, and it would be a wise idea to do that. So you have a compactable material to put back around the building. But structurally, I think this idea would repair the building and keep it in good shape for years to come.
Discussion?
Needs to be done.
Is then the board will entertain, or the chair will entertain a motion to make that happen? Anyone?
The total dollar amount, it was over 20-some thousand is.
22,750.
There are two contracts.
We gotta do
Two
both of them
contracts.
together.
He's saying 40, right?
I would say
40.
not to exceed 40,000, and that would include, should it be required to bring in sand or something to, back
Yeah,
up with.
well, I was gonna say, I think for that much money, it seems like you would get 3 bids on it.
It's, like I say, it would be up to the board. We certainly can. We have some other companies that are not quite as local as what these folks are, but I agree, for that amount of money, if that's the board's pleasure, we certainly could get some additional bids on it.
And the civil engineering firm that did the original report on it, they could probably give you names.
I have those names, yeah, we have those.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would move that we obtain at least 2 additional bids towards this project.
Is there a second?
Second.
So, just to clarify, you're requesting that we get 2 additional ones for a total of 3,
Correct.
and that's, okay.
And when I say we, I'm kind of looking at Craig.
We'll make the calls.
Okay.
No,
Hang-
I'm sorry,
hang on.
go ahead,
Is
we're
there,
in the middle.
or is there a second?
Second.
Who's been seconded? Further discussion?
I just wanted to make a comment to the board that as we weren't certain of where we were even going to go with this repair, that rather than waste the time of 3 separate companies coming in initially, I contacted this one, and they were kind enough to come in and do it. Now we'll get the
Thank you.
additional bids.
One question and comment I have is, are we assured that there's no either catastrophic structural damage that will occur because we're deferring this some weeks, maybe months, under the current circumstances? And certainly any, the concrete's still flexing, right?
Correct.
That's never a good sign.
However,
So, but nothing is,
even this company is now, they're currently booking in spring. So
So that
they'll want the frost out of the ground. They're not gonna come in
okay.
tomorrow, at any rate. So we've got a little time to play with here. We'll get some additional prices in on it. And,
Doesn't quite answer my question, but your point's taken.
well,
Any further discussion?
to answer your question, I say no.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? So I'll call the question. All those in favor of getting 2 additional bids indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is agreed to. Thank you. New business, Safer Grant, Chief Bayer.
Federal government has changed its requirements on safe grant. We applied and were successful in receiving it. The federal government covered all the expenses for the first 2 years, and the municipality was required to cover the 3rd year, so you had to maintain, the 3rd year was on the municipality. The federal government has changed that requirement, and now they will fund it for 2 years. There is no requirement beyond the 2 years. So what I'm asking the board, their approval, to allow us to at least apply, there's no cost in applying, for the Safer Grant for 3 firefighters for at least a 2-year time frame.
Any other discussion?
Well, you get 3 additional firefighters for 2 years. Then at the end, if you can afford them, you keep them. If you can't afford them, they get laid off.
We all know how well that worked last time.
Other places are doing it though. I mean, they are.
I
In
can't
fact,
believe,
I'm,
all right, I'll keep my mouth shut till the end.
Can
Any
you
else,
put
anything
some
else, Tom?
conditions in it where they can't be made into permanent unless you have to stay that way?
Did what?
Is there a way to put teeth in it so that if they're brought in, they are not to be made permanent at all, unless it's decided by the board later on, so that can't happen again?
right now, it'd be just approval to apply. I mean, we don't even know that we would be chosen. So right now, it is ability to apply for it. And I would say, once, if we were approved for it, that would be the time to set that criteria.
Well, if we're approving the application, you can almost guarantee that we would approve it if it was, the grant was successful. So I think that's, this is a decision for us to begin to make now, and maybe we don't want to make it today. speaking for myself, I was around during the previous Safer Grant, and it was great for 2 years, and I think it was the cause of significant, and understandably, significant internal discord, because of, we had to basically downsize by half. These are 3 additional firefighters, right?
That's correct.
So we would go to double the size of the department.
No, we would go back to what we lost. We downsized
So it's
3,
3, okay, go from
so
9.
we would be
go
going
9
back to what we
9 to
were
12.
prior to,
9 to 12, okay.
so there would be 4 per shift. And again, this is just to, you know, apply for it, and,
So this wouldn't save us any money.
wouldn't save you any, but it wouldn't cost you any either, so,
It might save you some overtime.
yeah,
Yes.
Mhm.
it'd save us some overtime.
Mhm.
How does that work? I mean, if it's shift to 4, I mean,
It just-
doesn't the overtime increase along with everything else?
Because of how it's set up with the allowing people to be off, one person can be off, and so you just have one person on, so you're not backfilling.
I don't follow
In other words, you'd have a three-man shift
Yes.
that. Oh, okay.
rather than a
So
4.
you go to 3 men,
Because you
okay,
had
so you
4
don't
on.
have a continuous, all
Correct.
right,
Yes.
fair enough. Well, it's,
And the reason, sorry to interrupt, but they just opened it, and we have a window, narrow window. I forget what it is, I think we've got a month, so the first part of March, I think, is when it closes, so.
all right, any further preliminary discussion? All right, is anyone willing to make a motion on this topic?
I'd move to have the chief or one of your captains apply for Safer Grant funding for years 2016 and 2017, I'm assuming.
It depends on when they, you know, if it's awarded and when, but yes, so it'll be in 2 years from that point on.
You want to just put for 2 years or for?
For 2 years.
I would second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor of applying for a Safer Grant for 2 years indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. No. And the motion is agreed to. Thank you.
So you said no?
I said no. All right, we are done with our closed session, done with our new business, so we'll move to closed session. We ask our attendees to please exit, and we will need a roll call vote,
Do the motion.
and Madam Secretary?
Now, do we have a first as who made the motion, who seconded?
Okay,
it?
that's
I'll make a motion to move into closed session at 9:43.
second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Craig,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes,
Tom, Kurt?
thank you. Does anyone need a break? Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Get rid of
5 minutes or
Get rid
less.
of my 2 cups of coffee.